the taste you get used to very quickly, because this is something that feels good to drink, and this comes naturally to your body, that it accepts it easily.
That was Réka Koncz, a young Hungarian winemaker speaking about natural wines. Réka works her vineyards in Barabás, in a little Hungarian village at the Ukrainian border, which she described as follows.
And if you ask people like our parents' generation, they would probably tell you that, yeah, I know Barabás, but because of smuggling diesel oil and not wine, you know.
She farms organically, plants PIWI varieties, doesn't have any barrels, makes natural wines, and this is what she thinks about machines in her vineyards.
I don't like to spray. I don't like to burn the diesel in my vineyards, you know. I don't like that it's blown into my workers' face and in mine. I don't want to do this the rest of my life. I'm just so tired of it.
So this is for me an episode that truly represents why I actually started this whole podcast thing. To give voice to people who want to make authentic wines with an honest worldview behind them. And of course, whose wines taste fantastic and lively. So enjoy! So Réka, welcome to the Wine Ghost podcast. It's nice to have you. I have also your 3 beautiful wines in front of me. It's nice of you to tune in from Hungary.
Thank you for inviting me to your podcast. Looking forward.
So let's start maybe with the most obvious question. Why did the interest for winemaking start for you? And why did you choose this beautiful path?
So maybe for me, choosing this profession wasn't that obvious as it is for many winemakers whose families grow vines for generations. It wasn't like that for us. Even though I come from a family which has always worked in agriculture and kept animals. My father is a veterinarian, so I have always been surrounded by nature and animals and agriculture, but we never grew vines. So the interest for me, I guess it came from, I don't even know from where, but it was my own interest, which I developed during high school. I started to become interested in wines and the word of wines and the taste of wines and how you make them. I can't explain it. It just came to me that I really am interested. And after that, I applied for university in Debrecen, and it was a horticulture bachelor. So we learned to grow fruits and ornamentals, grapes, vegetables. So there I learned the basics of growing the wine plant and how you prune it and so on, along with other fruits. But we never really made wine. I actually made wine for my master thesis, but it was not a wine region, you know. Debrecen is not a wine region. So the grapes we grew, they were on a sandy soil, and it was an experimental plantation. So we made wine there out of hybrids, so resistant varieties mostly. And after that, my interest just grew and grew, and I went to do a master in Denmark, in Copenhagen. It was not about winemaking, it was about agriculture, but my program was really flexible, so I could pick all my subjects, and there were many subjects which included microbiology and also wine microbiology and fermented foods microbiology, cheese, beer, whatever. And here I got a really good fundament of the microbiological part of winemaking. I worked in laboratory, so it was not a type of wine I make now. It was not natural. It wasn't even organic. It was between four walls of a lab. But it gave me a really good knowledge of fermentation kinetics and how yeast and bacteria work. And Here I also made a thesis on yeast evaluation. But the real thing that turned me towards natural wine, the type of wine I make now, was that I started to work in a wine bar because I really needed a job next to university, and this was kind of obvious that as a foreign student you can work in a bar, and obviously I picked a wine bar, and this wine bar happened to be a wine bar which imported organic and natural unmanipulated wines from Italy mainly. But then, because of the closeness of Italy and Slovenia, they started to buy wine from Slovenia. Then they started to buy from Czech. They started to buy from Hungary. So I really got sucked into this world of wine trade and natural wine. And because it was in Copenhagen, which is sort of a capital of natural wine, so all these things they happen like simultaneously. So I did work with yeast at the university. I did work in the wine business and the wine trade and restoration. So I don't even know what you asked. How did I become interested in the wine? So I didn't have an obvious, straightforward path as many winemakers had or have. To me, it happened a bit differently.
And what impact did that place have on you, Denmark and the natural wine world? Obviously, you make natural wines now, but did also maybe the natural wine culture like make a lasting impact on you, or the wines, the taste, or?
It had an enormous impact on me. I mean, without that part of my life, like this 10, 11 years I lived there, I would probably be at a completely different place right now, both physically and in mind. It was also new to me because like before, I thought that if you want to make wine, if you want to have your own plantation, your own winery, you have to have like, I don't know, like 70 hectares, 100 hectares, whatsoever. I always thought it was a game of rich people, like, and in a way this is true, but there in Copenhagen I learned that no, you don't have to be that kind of grower. You can have 5, 6, 10 hectares, whatever, even less, and you can place your wines into really good restaurants, and it will reach people eventually because they are seeking for quality, and they're seeking for wines without additives and wines without manipulation. And I haven't really had that feeling in Hungary before. But also, last time I lived in Hungary, it was in the beginning of my 20s. So it was not even, I guess I wasn't even that experienced in the wine world and wine trade because I was just simply too young. But then, but there in Denmark, there was a really good experience to me that you can actually show your work even though you are small, but your intention is good and you want to work with your soil and you want to work with the nature around you. And the taste also, it was something new to me, but the taste you get used to very quickly because this is something that feels good to drink, and this comes naturally to your body, that it accepts it easily. But so it has expanded my view and how I taste wine, and it was crucial, and it still is, because even though I don't live in Denmark anymore, but what I've learned, that the people I met there, the wine fairs I attended, the vineyards I visited, the people I talked to, it has given me super much, and I still I don't know, it's still a big part of what I do now, actually, definitely.
But after Denmark, then you went out into the world, so to say, and worked in also different wineries in Europe, if my research is correct, right?
Yes, not for a very long time. So I haven't spent a whole year in any of these wineries, just a month, 2 weeks, 3 weeks each places. But it was it meant a lot, because I went to visit winemakers who already worked based on these principles, and they made I mean, now we say natural wine. Some people doesn't regard wines with like 10 milligrams of sulfites as natural wine, but they were good with the vines and with the soil, and really like minimum additives manipulation. And I did travel around a bit, yeah.
So let's talk about Barabás now, because you were courageous enough to start your own winery. What did motivate you to start your own winery, and especially in Barabás, which, to be honest, I come from Hungary, but I haven't heard about this place before. Why there, and why then?
We bought our first hectare of vineyard in Barabás, I think in 2014. I did live in Denmark at the time, so we came from the area, and my grandparents, they have lived their lives in the neighboring village, which is called Vámosatya. This is where my winery is, actually. So we know the area and we know the place, and if you ask the generation of my parents, everyone can tell you that, oh yeah, we did go there to harvest summer work, at the summer camp during the socialist era. So they knew this place, and we knew that there were vineyards there, but I just lived too far away to think about having an own vineyard. And also maybe I wasn't sure that I wanted that at the time. I was in my 20s. Eventually I thought I would end up making wine, but I didn't know where it would be. So actually this is thanks to my father, who actually initiated this purchase of first hectare, and then it became a bit more, and it grew on us. And then I just realized that, okay, I'm really deep into this now, and I can't just live my life in Denmark and let the vineyard be and not taking care of it. And at the beginning, my family helped. People helped us prune when I wasn't home, and so it was not great that I couldn't be here. But the more you do this, the more you get attached to it. So I just felt that I need to be more here and less in Denmark. So because of that, I kept cutting my jobs, from full time to half time, and so on. And I traveled more and more to Hungary, but eventually it ended up me moving home and leaving Denmark for good.
When was that?
So for the last 3 years, we can say I live in Hungary now. But why in Barabás? Yeah, I think I answered that because of my family's knowledge of the place, and yes, it is not an established vine region, or it's probably known best from its from the border crossing between Ukraine and Hungary, and if you ask people like our parents' generation, they would probably tell you that, yeah, I know Barabás, but because of smuggling diesel oil and not wine, Yeah.
Because this is on paper belongs to the Bük region, right?
It does now, yeah. And before that, it did belong to the Miskolc and its surroundings, the wine region of that. And in the past, I believe it also belonged to the Tokaj wine district, but it doesn't matter where it does belong to now, but it's still just, we feel a little bit like it's on its own. It's kind of an outcast, because it has to belong to somewhere on paper. I have to send my harvest reports to someone, but it's just a tiny mountain on its own, and it's not belonging to any bigger districts. It's also quite far. I mean, the Bük district is quite far.
Are you basically the only winery there?
Yeah. I'm the only one who bottles wine, for sure, and sells it. I mean,
Did it not scare you in the beginning that you're gonna be the first and maybe only one?
No, because my connections and my business relationships they were before, they existed even before I started to make wine. And this is a very lucky situation, because I first had the network and then I started to make wine, and it wasn't the other way around. It felt natural to me that I'm gonna do this now, and then I tell my story to my network and I show what I made. I wasn't aiming for, big sales and fame and whatsoever. It just, in a way, it is quite relieving that I don't have to like comply with other big vine regions rules and how they organize their own structure. And I can do whatever I want, basically. And
it's kind of the new world in the old world, right?
Yeah, in a way, yeah.
So can you describe this place a little bit? How should we imagine this one mountain, as you already mentioned?
It's not a high mountain. It's like 220 meters. So you could rather call it a hill, but it's very unique because of the plants and the animals that live on it. It does belong to the Huoltobai National Park, and it's the whole area of the mountain is protected. So it's not like I can do all kind of work all year through, but I have to finish all the, for example, if we work, like if you want to cut bushes next to the vine rows and you want to clear up the rows, I can only do that till the middle of March because of the birds and butterflies and so on. But yeah, the soil, it's a volcanic base soil. It's a rhyolite, I think it's the English name too. And the topsoil is clay and loam. It's a very interesting place because obviously, yeah, the volcanic part is there, but also the microclimate and okay, I'm just gonna say words which are very trendy nowadays, but biodiversity, it's I mean, huge. So it really does feel like that you are the intruder with your vines, and nature is just keeps taking it back. And it's also kind of like a hard fight against nature sometimes, but it's a beautiful place. So if you come to Barabás, there are like guided tours by the Huoltobai National Park where they take you up to the top of the mountain. You can see the old stone mine where they actually mined this rhyolite for construction. Now it's closed, fortunately. So and it's good for wine too. And obviously this was a part of the tradition in the area before everyone grew wines. We don't know super much about what has happened before. So most of my plantations, when I took them over, they had this Királynka variety, which they planted in the 70s and 1970s. But we don't know very much about what has been there like before. I know there was traditional varieties like Furmint and Szerémi Zöld, some Kadarka, mainly bush wines, and not on terraces like now. The direction of the rows on the mountain, it was different. So not horizontal, but yeah, what's the opposite?
Vertical.
Yeah. There were good wines made there, and they gave jobs to a lot of people. Actually, a lot of people and their families worked in the winemaking in the past.
Did you change the plantings to horizontal, and if so, why?
No, I didn't. I just kept working the vines as they were when I bought them. So
you basically have like 40 to 60-year-old wines.
Yes, and I have also planted some myself. Yeah.
Yeah, I already read about the new plantings. Quite interesting because there are also, I think, 3 PIWI varieties among them, if I'm correct, and also Rhine Riesling.
Yes.
I can understand the Kékfrankos, of course, the Blaufränkisch, but why the PIWI varieties? Is it a bet on the future of viticulture, or rather just an experiment?
I think both. If you work in winemaking and wine growing, and even though we are certified organic, sometimes you have to spray a lot. And even though it is copper and sulfite we spray, but it's still harmful for our health and for the plants, and copper accumulates in the soil. I don't like to spray. I don't like to burn the diesel in my vineyards. I don't like that it's being blown into my workers' face and in mine. I don't want to do this the rest of my life. I'm just so tired of it. And yeah, I know that I can sense some kind of I don't know what the word is, but some kind of snobism when it comes to PIWI varieties, that yeah, I don't take those varieties seriously because they gave a shit wine, and that's what they always did, and the wines will taste foxy. And this is not the case anymore. There are like really, really interesting varieties which I genuinely feel like trying out. So partly because I don't want to spray that much, and partly because I'm interested in something new. Yeah, it's also to expand my own knowledge about grapes, like try something new. And I'm pretty sure that I will meet a lot of obstacles and problems. It's not that just because they're hybrids and resistant varieties that you don't need to do anything. You have to. And one of the problems is that, I don't know if you've probably heard about the black rot disease, which has, I mean, it's quite a new disease. We had this, I think, in the past 20 years. We had it only, and in Hungary and in our region, the last four years, which has been like really hard when it comes to black rot, and these PIWI varieties, they're not resistant to black rot. Some of them has better tolerance than others. So I haven't solved all the problems just because I don't need to spray for mildews. I don't know. We will see. I am interested in trying them, and we'll see what we can do with them. I'm interested in making wine out of them. So.
Yeah, because you also work with traditional varieties, right? Hungarian traditional varieties. I have one of your cuvées. This is the Eastern Accents, 2022, and this is Harshlever and Furmint, right?
Yes.
Was Harshlever also very typical to your region, or is it mostly only in Tokaj and then spread to your area, or how did it?
I think it's probably common everywhere, but the way I have it in my vineyards, it's so I pick the grapes as a field blend. I have a lot of Harshlever in my vineyards, and I think they're there because when they needed to replace Királylánka, they couldn't always access those plants, and they just got something else. They got Harshlever, they got Furmint, so they planted that just to keep the number of plants, and so that's why I have a lot of Harshlever. But I don't know if it was popular there before. Probably, yeah.
And what about Királylánka? Because I think it's also in Hungary, not a super well-known variety. What should we know about that?
So I think the history says that Királylánka came to Hungary from, at that time it was a part of Hungary, but from Transylvania. So it is an autochthon variety, as far as I know. It is an interesting variety, but if you don't like green work, don't pick Királylánka. That's my advice, because it's really a vegetative plant and it grows a lot of shoot. And I don't know, like the wines when they're fresh and young, they kind of like smell flowery, and then when it's becoming mature, it kind of gives you the hint of honey and acacia flower. To me, it's not a wine that it can be. I try to say this so it doesn't sound like I don't like Királylánka. I like it, but it doesn't get many dimensional. To me it's
Okay.
just like
Kind of simple.
yeah, at the end. So I like to mix it with others.
Yeah, because now I just tasted these wines. I poured them out in with a caravan, but I waited like for more than half an hour already.
Yeah.
And this wine was, I mean, all three wines were kind of hazy in the beginning, but it's also normal with caravan. But this wine also stayed hazy, so it's much more hazy than the Furmint. I guess that this is not a mistake, or that was not without intention. How do you make these wines? What's the vinification like? Dear friends, I have to talk to you about something really magical. The last 2 years were quite challenging for me, working at least 45 hours a week as a sommelier, planning our wedding, keeping my workout goals in check, and studying for the WSET diploma on the side. It was not unusual for me to feel sluggish, unfocused, and unmotivated even. But the last 2-3 months were much easier thanks to one product, Magic Mind. This little green drink is a tasty combination of 12 main ingredients, including mushrooms, nootropics, adaptogens, and vitamins, respectively. It was created by accomplished scientists, such as Dr. Andrew Weil. Maybe you know him from the Joe Rogan podcast. And besides boosting productivity, it even helps reducing daily stress with active ingredients like ashwagandha. So instead of drinking 8 espressi a day like before, I just had one shot of Magic Mind every day after lunch with 1 espresso, an hour before my study sessions. And I was back in the game, feeling sharper and more focused without the roller coaster effect of any other common stimulants. The awareness, better focus, and to be honest, even better mood has lasted into the late hours that work beyond 10 PM. Even the taste is quite pleasant, especially if you keep it chilled in the fridge. I think everyone needs a push in his or her daily hustle, and I think Magic Mind could work for you just as well as it has worked for me. And if you want to get it cheaper than others, you can get a staggering 56% off your first subscription via the link in the show notes, or 20% off your one-time purchase if you use the code WINEGHOST20 in the checkout. That's WINEGHOST without the usual S at the end, 20 in the checkout. But you can find everything in the show notes. But now, back to Réka, to Hungary, and let's focus on the first wine, the Eastern Accents.
So that's the 22 Eastern Accents. That's also a very young wine. I bottled it, I think, in September. So that's mostly hash level and like 65% hash level, 35 Furmint. And this has also grapes in it, which I don't grow. So I had to buy a bit of grapes to have enough volume.
What's the volume you aim for? Like, if you said that you don't have the volume, how many bottles do you make of these labels?
Yeah, so I don't know, like 2,000 bottles, 2,500 of each. That's a minimum.
Okay.
That would be nice. It doesn't always happen, sometimes it's less. But just so it does make sense when I distribute and I sell. And it's still very little, so it's still very hard to distribute. Anyway, so I do use whole clusters in this wine. The way I like to do it is that I crush the clusters a little bit, just so they release some juice. And the bottom of the tank, it's a very simple, just a harvesting cask. It's very simple, and then I just put these slightly crushed clusters on each other, and they already producing the juice underneath them. And I just cover this when I fill the vat and let it ferment. So you get the stem contact, the cluster contact, the skin contact, but it's not a very harsh extraction. It's just, I mean,
so
it
no
gives
punch downs, no intensive mash.
No, nothing. It's just sometimes I make a starter, like forgot the French name, but when you just 2-3 days you start a starter at another place than your winery, so you don't pick up the yeast from the winery. It can also be in the vineyard, wherever. if I want to make sure that the nothing bad happens in the vat after I close it. Sometimes I forget this or I don't have time, then I don't do this, but it's best to do. And this way you still have the non-Saccharomyces yeast starting your fermentation because you didn't wait long enough for the Saccharomyces to grow. So and then I just listen to the vat. I listen to if it's fermenting, and when I start to hear that it's bubbling down and it's not giving any great noises anymore, then I cover it up and we press it in traditional basket press. This is one part of the wine. I mean, it's not the same method every year. One fixed point is in the receipt of the Eastern accents is there's always hash level in it. And the other part can be Furmint, can be Királylenka. Last year I had Sauvignon Blanc in it. I like to macerate one grape a little bit and not macerate the other one at all. So it doesn't get overwhelming. And I think I didn't macerate the Furmint here, just press directly after distemming it.
It also has this kind of amber color, so I wouldn't say that it's a very typical young wine color, but it also had a already very complex nose, especially if you wait like 5 minutes, I think. And it also wakes up a little bit, and also this kind of almost like this rooibos tea kind of aromas, a bit like a fermented pear and like almost a light muscat, like dried white flowers, and very kind of delicate in a way, but also on the other hand you notice that it has this kind of tea aroma, so you notice kind of light phenolic notes, so to say, in the nose, but it's very almost like cider like kind of fresh, very kind of fermenting kind of nose or perfume. Okay. Very refreshing. And then in the mouth it has noticeable phenolics, but also I don't know if it comes from the Furmint, but it has a very refreshing finish. It has this kind of apple skin cider like kind of light citrus peel even kind of aromas, but then it becomes a little bit almost like astringent, like a lime skin, that this kind of refreshing, very dry finish, like almost this kind of like a light dry limoncello or something. You know what I mean? It's like this kind of citrusy, but very not harsh acidity, but very refreshing acidity. So very linear in the finish, I would say, and with a little bit of breadiness. I would say this is from the yeast, or this is from the unfiltered nature of the wine. But very complex wine.
Or breadiness?
Nine bread, like the food. Yeah,
I like both.
But it had this kind of yeasty, bready, like this white bread quality.
Okay.
But this gingery and spicy element, this is mostly coming from the Harshly Valley, right? I'm
pretty sure, yeah. And you can also overdo this. That's why I try to reduce maceration on Harshly Valley or not do at all. I also have different wines where I didn't do Harshly Valley. I didn't macerate Harshly, not in this wine, but I have them, in other containers. But I'm pretty sure it comes from there. Yeah.
What's the idea behind the name of this wine?
The idea behind this wine is that, as I told you, I often buy grapes for part of this wine, and I also give some of my grapes into this cuvée. So it happened before that I bought Harshly Valley from the Matra, for example, and that's when I figured this name, that Eastern accents, because kind of Eastern wine regions are we both, and I give a little, and the producer who I had collaborated with gives a little, and that's why Eastern accents. Yeah, two Eastern winemakers.
Because you also have these wonderful, almost like a bit psychedelic labels, I would say. How did you find Aaron Billings, the Australian artist, who creates these labels?
So by accident, basically. My ex-husband, he's a musician, and one of his previous bands in Denmark, they worked with him. He made an album cover for them. And I saw that cover, and then I started to scroll on his Instagram, and I saw pictures I really liked, and I, started to fantasize about how could this become a series of wine labels. And so I just wrote him an email, and I presented him my idea, and he was up for it, and yeah, so this is as many years now we work together, and I never tell Aaron what to draw. I just tell him the name of the wine and the vintage, and now we of course have labels which have the same graphics each year. But that's 100% him. He figured and draw all those labels. I never told him what to make. So that's why maybe you have the feeling that it's psychedelic and doesn't necessarily connect with the message of the wine, but maybe it does. Who knows?
I didn't say that. I think your wines are also kind of psychedelic. So, but they stand out for sure. If the listener wants to check out, I'm gonna upload it to Instagram for sure. But they always, like, except the Robin, I would say, they always show someone who is looking for something in the dark with the help of a flashlight, right?
Yeah.
Like the Robin, yeah, because the Robin is more like I would say a bizarre Barbie land with an old half-naked dude. But the other ones, they are always looking for something in the dark. So the message comes from this artist and not from you.
Well, during the years, it also became kind of my message, I guess. But his message and my message are the same. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like in a way that we work for acceptance and open-mindedness and values that for some people, I don't know, might seem strange or hard to accept, but the way I want to live my life is like this, I don't know if you understand what I mean, but the message of Aaron, it definitely resonates with me, how I want to live my life, and being that type of person, especially in today's world, it's not always easy, but I just want to support that, and that's what I get from his artwork. Be open-minded and accept whatever people you meet, whatever type of people you meet. Yeah.
Cool. I think that's a great match for your wines. And also that I thought, to be honest, that you ordered kind of this label or the idea behind these labels, because I think to your story, it's 100% perfect match. Like it's almost kind of the representation of the idea to make wine in Barabás, which I as a Hungarian haven't heard of, to be honest. So about the next wine, because this is a single variety of Furmint, which becomes increasingly important, I would say, not only in Hungary, but also where I live now in Austria. The variety, I mean. Why does it call Disorder?
Because most of the Furmints I drink and I drank, they have been so orderly, like so focused, so point on, so sharp, so barriqued, so everything, and this is great. And what I told you about not belonging to the Tokai wine district, like on the paper, yeah, we are not far from each other, but I don't feel like I have to comply with the rules of Tokai, and I can just, or Shomlo or whatever, I can just have these beautiful Furmint grapes and I can do whichever I want with them without being to comply with the, how what people think like a Furmint should taste from Tokai or Shomro or whatever, and that's why Disorder. So this is a disorderly Furmint, but in a way still kind of controlled.
Yeah, so it's not because of Joy Division. That was basically my question.
Actually, it is.
No, that's a joke.
But not for me. I just didn't know that if I say this, you would know, or people would know. But that song has it's one of my favorite songs, and
yeah, mine too. Yeah, Furmint. I think it's as I said, it's also very important variety, and also I would say a variety also in the future because it's quite late ripening and can hold acidity really well. I think it's also a very good representation, to be honest, in your wines that the structure of the acidity, that it's kind of lingering, quite high acidity. But as
Mhm.
you already told, that you have also kind of cold or coolish soil, if I'm correct, with clay, with a lot of clay and loam, and also not the
Yeah.
warmest climate. But it also has a lot of substance. So do you use like old big barrels, or how do you age these wines?
No, I don't use barrels actually. I only work with other containers like plastic and fiberglass and amphoras and yeah, you know, this flex tank, this American kind of.
Uh-huh.
It's also a sort of fiberglass plastic, but they say it's similar to how you age wines in barrel. But anyway, I don't have barrels, so I wanted to have containers that doesn't impact the taste that much, so I could have an idea about how my wine tastes without that. Just, you know, at the beginning of my career, but it doesn't mean that I will never have barrels. It's just,
Yeah,
but
because the color, first when I saw the color, because it also has this kind of amber
yeah,
touch to the color, and thought, wow, now it's a woody Furmint with in grandpa's old, you know what I mean,
hmm,
grandpa's old wooden barrel, but it doesn't. So and that's why I wanted to ask you. It's crystal clear, I would say, not from the color, no, not for the look, but also on the palate. It's much more crystalline than the Eastern accents, I would say. It also
yeah,
has this kind of saline, minerally touch, if you want,
yeah.
almost this kind of saltiness, and very pungent, high acidity.
I mean,
But
I
it has
guess it
that.
will be tamed a little bit during the next few months,
Mhm.
but yeah. This wine has been partly in fiberglass and amphora, so like half half.
From the structure or how the wine feels, it's very, very linear. It's almost like a Rhine Riesling, I think, you know, from the structure and from the feeling, what you get. Not especially in the aromas, because it has this kind of quince touch to it, or a little bit different aromas, I would say, than a Rhine Riesling. But this kind of mouth-watering, very linear, very kind of Ferrari wine, which runs through your mouth, and very lingering, really lingering acidity, and it kind of dances with your tongue. Very
I almost
interesting.
feel like tasting it
Yeah.
after your description.
Yeah. So what's your what are your hopes, maybe, or what are your ideas about Furmint? Are you gonna stay focused on this variety, or do you believe in it, or what's your take on that?
I think it would be nice to have just a little every year. It's not that I don't want to become known for Furmint. I don't feel like that it does belong to my heritage that much. I mean, obviously
Mm,
it does because I am Hungarian, but it doesn't. It's not a part of my heritage from my micro surroundings where I grew up. You know, but
mm,
it is an interesting variety, and I do feel like working with it also just to train my skills, you know, to work with this variety, because I honestly I think it's quite hard to
mhm,
make an interesting wine out of it, and I don't even say that I succeeded with this one, but it does feel interesting to try. So I think I will always have a little, yeah.
mm.
um, right now, I didn't plant any new Furmint plantations, and I don't even know if I want to or I will, but we will see. Yeah, I don't know.
Hmm. I think you should continue. It's I really like this Furmint, and it's also in a way it's disorderly, but on the other hand, I think very typical of the variety. So I think you did a great job. And the third one is a Kékfrankos or Blaufränkisch. I think this variety also maybe steps out of his own past, I would say,
Mhm.
because more and more people making Kékfrankos, and especially Blaufränkisch. It makes the variety maybe more comparable what it can do in different terroirs.
Yeah.
or maybe in different winemakers' hand. But your idea about Kékfrankos, is it more your heritage, or is it like it was in the vineyard and now I have to work with it, or do you like it, or is it maybe a hard project? Because a
So
change of heart is the name of the wine. That's why.
yeah. And the name is because I sort of had a change of heart because I never worked with the red variety before, and I started to do it in 2018. And I didn't have any Kékfrankos in my vineyard, so I had to buy from the Matra. And these are also organic grapes, and that's when I tried Kékfrankos first, and since then I did buy a couple of times from this same grower in the Matra, and this is also from him. So I don't have my own Kékfrankos yet. I just plant half a hectare this spring. We are just preparing the soil for it now. So yeah, I really like to drink Kékfrankos, so I wanted to make it, and I wanted to see how it does in my hands. And again, as we mentioned before, I don't have barrels, so this is Kékfrankos just focusing on the fruit. And this is the type of wine I like to drink. If and if I drink a Kékfrankos, I look for this experience, and I think there are very good examples of that in Hungary now. And I wanted to make something like that, like a wine that is easygoing but still structured, which you feel like drinking, but it doesn't feel too heavy. It has tannins, it has structures, but it also has the fruit. And I like this wine. I don't think that I need to prove myself with this wine. I just want to make a wine that it's lovely to drink and makes me happy.
Yeah, well, it is. I mean, now I'm drinking it a little bit chilled, so I would say it's 13 degrees, 14, but I think it matches the style of the wine very well.
Yeah.
And to be honest, when I smelled the wine first, I went a little bit to Beaujolais, like not a Beaujolais Nouveau, but like a Moulin à Vent, like a little bit more structured, like Gamay. And it also, the mouth, to be honest, it more resembles more that kind of style to me, because as you also said, it's very fruit driven. It's not really spicy. I think the second element besides fruitiness, it is mostly coming from this inorganic elements, so this kind of minerality, if you want, but it's kind of puristic, very chiseled down, very dry, kind of stony element, if it makes sense. The wine, like structure-wise, actually starts with the acidity, and then the tannins or the phenolics are very like rounded or chiseled down, but very fine grained tannins, so it's not drying out in mouth, but it comes at the end a little bit on the tongue, but it's not dominated by the tannins. So it's I think your idea that you said that you want that kind of more like easy drinking red wine, right? Like a more fruit driven, not this kind of very tannic, like kind of Arnold Schwarzenegger type of wine. So I think you succeeded it very well, and for me, a separate category also in the Kékfrankos or Blaufränkisch world, because I think not a lot of people are doing this kind of stuff, or not a lot of people have the courage to concentrate on fruit for Blaufränkisch, because especially here in Burgenland, I would say in Austria, it either has a lot of new oak, which I personally don't like, but a lot of people do like it, or maybe the classics or the old classics have a lot of new oak.
Yeah.
But the new ones, they either have they concentrate on the spice, or maybe in Südburgenland, so in southern Burgenland, on this kind of slate soil and this kind of reductive nature, maybe a little bit of bread, and it's kind of very, I would say, a bit more niche kind of product. But your wine is really very fruit driven, very useful, but still serious. I would say it's a beautiful wine.
Thank you. And yeah, I agree that it's somewhere in the middle. It's like it's not very at the far end of the natural wines, like taste wise or style wise, I would say. And it's really, yeah. And so yeah, it's somewhere in the middle. And I would say that's a few months of bottle aging will do a lot for it. It's also just been bottled recently, and this kind of it will mellow out. I'm pretty sure.
But if I talked about already the wine styles, how do you see your main markets for your wines? Or what is the type of person who enjoys your wines? Maybe it's a better question.
I don't know. I get feedback and messages from all sorts of people, young people, but also wine drinkers that has been trying everything in France, and then they drink my wine and they say that, yeah, this is kind of a refreshing take on this and that, and also on Hungarian varieties, and it gives them joy. And I think in a way it makes people happy that my wines are, I'm open-minded when I make the wines, and people can taste this when they are drinking my wines. Like, this Kékfrankos doesn't have to be a Kékfrankos from Sopron or Burgenland or Eger, or it's just a Kékfrankos which is nice to drink. And this is kind of the same with all my wines, that I don't feel this pressure of belonging somewhere. I already feel that I belong to the great community of natural winemakers and drinkers, and I feel fine and I feel happy, and I don't want to close myself in a box. And I think that comes through my wines probably to people. But
I think that's a beautiful message also in today's world, because you already mentioned that in the beginning of this conversation, that in today's world it's kind of difficult to be yourself. Kind of that was your message, right?
Yeah.
But I think also in today's world, not only in our popular culture, but also politically, you always have the feeling that you have to be clustered in, and then your message is kind of written for you, not from you.
Yeah.
But I think this kind of disorderly mentality, it comes through your wines very well. So I think this is for me authentic wines, because that's why I'm doing also this podcast, to be honest, to talk about that stuff which is behind the wines. So that's very cool what you just said. You just confirmed the taste and the feeling in the wine.
That's great that we agree.
Would you like to add something more, maybe?
No, I think we've covered it through pretty well. I'm just happy to talk about my project, and thank you for finding me for this podcast. I didn't ask you why did you think of me doing this podcast? I mean, you just said it basically 2 sentences ago, but where did you meet my wines, and what made you?
Ask a French guy in Budapest who owns a wine bar. And then I think that you know the name.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, because I visited Budapest last year, and then we picked your wine. Actually, he recommended your wine because we were looking for this kind of style. So thank him.
I will. He's a good representative for my wines.
Yeah. So we are talking about the Marlu bar, and it's also worth visiting when you are in Budapest, for sure.
Yes, it does. Everyone do that.
Cool. So Réka, thank you very much, and I wish you all the best with your work, and hope to meet you in person, and when we are in the same country once in a lifetime at least. Yeah. So wish you all the best. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Mate. Take care.
Thanks. You
Bye.
too. Bye-bye.